Chapter 4. Yawn, you're going to move in with me. It took me a moment to let her words sink in. I think that part of me understood what she said quite clearly, but the other part of me needed to believe that I had only misheard her. So, like an idiot, I said, "What?" "You heard me, Yawn. You should move in with me. It's obvious that no one else can really help you, and you can't really afford your own place. I have a guest room you can stay in at my place. That way you won't have to get a job which would interfere with brigade activities. It'll be perfect!" While your logic in the last statement was sound enough, you're forgetting a few crucial factors. I'll illustrate them right now. Factor 1. I'd be living with you. Do you have any idea how stressful it is dealing with you for as many hours a week as I do? I need a break from you every once in a while. It's bad enough that I'm around you every school day, not to mention the weekend excursions around the city. Factor 2. I'm a boy, you're a girl, okay? I really don't want to go into details about this one. Call me old-fashioned, but I just don't think it's right for people of opposite sexes to live under the same roof if they're not married or dating. Factor 3. Remember that it's not your house. I'm pretty damn sure that your parents are going to say something about me living there. In fact, now that I think about it, do I even want to meet your parents? Anyone that could raise a person like you. I need to stop. The thought is too scary. Factor 4. I'll be living with you! I know I said this already, but I cannot state it enough. Don't worry about my parents. I'm sure I'll be able to talk them into letting you stay. Obviously, once again, you refused to listen. I stated 3 other factors. Well, technically 2, but never mind that. It's settled then. You're going home right now to get your things ready, while I get my place ready. I'll be over at 2. You better be ready. And, just like that, I'd been bullied once again into doing something I didn't want to do. I mean, sure, a lot of guys would jump at the idea of living with an attractive girl. They read those stupid manga of 2 strangers living under one roof, having crazy things happen to them before finally falling in love. But this is reality, and those kinds of things never happen. Besides, I'm sure Haruhi's parents will say no anyway, and we'll be done with it. Before leaving, Haruhi had one more thing to say. Yawn, since you're not leaving after all, you have to return all of the gifts everyone gave you. It's only fair that way. Since when were you the one to judge of what's fair? I looked at Koizumi, Asahina, and Nagato. They all insisted that I keep their gifts. Haruhi, on the other hand, I want that armband back. Do I really have to? I kinda liked it. Yes. My original plan was to have you use it to advertise at your new school so you could create a new branch of the SOS Brigade there. Yeah, right, like that was ever going to happen. But since you're not going anywhere, there's no need for you to have an armband. We already know where you stand in the brigade. Well, using that logic, you shouldn't need to wear one either. It's not like we have any confusion about your standing in the brigade. It's different in my case. I'm the chief of the brigade. I need something to allow me to stand out. There are few people in the universe that stand out as well as you do, but nevertheless, I really don't want to give my armband back. Haruhi stared at me with narrowed eyes for about half a minute before sighing loudly. Fine, keep it. But you have to wear it whenever I order you to. Do I really have a choice? Anyway, with that said, we all decided to leave the cafe. After we went our separate ways, Koizumi walked up beside me. I figured he'd have something to say. Well, this turned out to be an interesting set of events. Interesting, to say the least, Captain Understatement. To be honest, I was expecting today to be the worst day of my life. I'm terribly glad that things worked out differently. I can't help but get the feeling that Suzumiya wished for something like this to happen. Oh God, please don't go suggesting that this is all her fault. Well, even if it is, it's incredibly inconvenient to think that my destiny could change at the drop of a hat like that. I'd rather believe that this is a coincidence. And perhaps it is. I'm only speculating. I'm sure it goes without saying that her emotional state is exponentially better than it was the entire week before. Yeah, was the best I could come up with after what he said. It was then that a thought had crossed my mind. Koizumi, do you know anything about Haruhi's parents? Koizumi stopped walking and smiled at me with that incredibly annoying smile. It goes without saying that studying Suzumiya requires some knowledge about her parents as well. In fact, there is a small faction in our organization that looks upon them with some reverence. After all, they did create her, so to speak. As creepy as that is, I couldn't get images of Catholicism and Mother Mary out of my head. I couldn't begin to imagine what it would be like to give birth to a god. What are they like? Koizumi's smile grew even larger and more annoying. I think it's best for you to find out yourself. And with that, Koizumi began to walk away. Why wouldn't he say anything? All of a sudden, I found myself becoming deathly afraid. I wonder if it's not too late to move up north anyway. I looked at my watch and realized that my mother would likely be hundreds of kilometers away by now. Damn. I finally got home, seeing as all my stuff was technically already packed and ready to go, decided to lie down and take a nap. I was still beat from all the sleepless nights and packing from earlier this week. I got back on my futon and was quickly asleep before I knew it. I was awoken by the sound of loud banging at my door. Behind the door, I could hear the voice of an irate teenage girl screaming at the top of her lungs. Oh boy, I can't wait to be living with her, if that even happens. I finally opened the door after wiping the sleep from my eyes to find Haruhi scowling on the other side. About time. Were you sleeping? How lazy can you be? My stuff was already packed, so there wasn't anything for me to do. Whatever. Get ready. We're leaving now. Did your parents say it was okay? Quit wasting my time with unimportant questions. Get your suitcase and get going. Unimportant questions? I'm pretty sure it's damn important that your parents agree to me living there. After all, I have to bring my stuff back after finding out I can't live there. Then that would be a real waste of time. We'll come for the rest of your stuff later. Let's go. With that, I grabbed my bag and began to follow Haruhi all the way to her house. I have never been there even once since I've met Haruhi, a fact that was made painfully obvious during the events of her disappearance when Nagato changed the world. I was a little curious about what such a place would look like, but more than that, I was terrified. I began to imagine the most twisted and horrible place imaginable, a place only a demon would want to call home. Yep, that had to be it. Haruhi didn't have her own bike, so I was forced to walk the whole distance there, which, I had to admit, sucked pretty bad, but it was still manageable. It took almost an hour to get there. When we did, I was greeted by the sight of a typical two-floored Western-styled house with white-colored siding. In other words, it was completely normal-looking. I wasn't sure whether I should be relieved or disappointed. Am I nuts? We soon entered the house after taking off our shoes. I was given the opportunity to see the inside, which also appeared suspiciously normal. Everything was clean and well-furnished. I noticed that the living room had a lot of baseball paraphernalia. I could only surmise that Haruhi's father was a baseball fan. Wait, didn't Haruhi tell me that she was taken to a baseball game with her father once? Right, that makes sense. Maybe her father's a pretty normal guy after all. Haruhi turned to me and told me to wait in the living room. She then walked into the kitchen, where I assumed her parents were. It was then that I heard this statement. Mom, Dad, I have a really big favor to ask you. Wait, what? You mean to tell me you haven't even asked them yet? What were you thinking? Do you have any idea how bad this is going to look? You see, there's this friend that recently became homeless, and my friend needs a place to stay. This is going to end really badly. As soon as they find out that this friend of hers is a guy, I'm probably going to get my ass kicked by her dad, and maybe her mom too. Then I'd have to make the trek back to my house with all kinds of injuries. That would suck big time. I was wondering if we could let him stay here. Okay, this is the part where they say no, and I can go home. I'm sure Haruhi will probably fight with them for a bit, but I doubt they'd change their mind. I'd go home and forget about this silly idea. Yeah. Except when I heard what appeared to be Haruhi's parents, they didn't sound completely against the idea. They sounded more unsure. It was then that Haruhi peeked her head into the living room and waved me in. Oh crap, here we go. My heart was pounding in absolute terror. I took a deep breath and slowly walked into the kitchen. I decided to try and pull an Asahina and make myself look as humble as possible as I made myself visible. I kept my eyes on the floor, afraid to even look at them. I bowed deeply before speaking. I'm terribly sorry for inconveniencing you. This was Suzumiya's idea to do this. I'll understand if you are against the idea. I rarely, if ever, refer to Haruhi as Suzumiya, but since I was trying to be extra polite and formal, it seemed necessary. To be honest, I was extremely uncomfortable acting like this. I don't know how Asahina does it all the time. I had managed to get a quick glance at the both of them. Haruhi's mother had long brown hair, much like Haruhi did when we first met. I couldn't make out her eyes, as she was giving a Koizumi-like smile. Only her smile was warm and gentle, whereas Koizumi's was fake and annoying. She was actually an incredibly lovely woman, exhibiting a charm not too different from Asahina. Haruhi's father had short black hair with eyes matching Haruhi's. He had the build of a man who stays in very good shape. I guess you could say he was a handsome guy. Not that I'd really know. Both of them looked way too young to be the parents of a teenage daughter. However, unlike his wife, his expression could best be summed up in one word: unamused. This was made even more obvious by the fact that he put his newspaper down and crossed his arms. I see. Haruhi decided to continue to introduce me. This is my friend. His name is Yawn. We've been classmates since we both started high school, and we're in the same club. Damn you, Haruhi. Did you have to tell them that stupid nickname? I made sure to tell them my real name after Haruhi was done talking. Haruhi's father continued to stare me down, while her mother smiled innocently at me. The room was silent for about a minute, before the silence was finally broken by the following statement. Care of Mr. Suzumiya. Absolutely not. There we go, just as expected. Can I go now? Unfortunately, his authority was challenged shortly after all. Not by Haruhi, but her mother. Oh, why not? He seems nice enough. We can't let him be cast out into the streets. Great, now those two are about to argue, just what I wanted to see. I'm not letting some boy I don't know live under the same roof as my daughter. It's out of the question. It's now Haruhi's turn to object. Yay! He's not like that at all. You're overreacting. I decided to butt in, trying to defuse the situation before it got out of hand. It's okay if you don't feel right about me staying here. It really was too much to ask. I do have a little money. I can just find my own place. I'm really sorry for wasting your time. How much money do you have? Asked Mrs. Suzumiya. About 40,000 yen. That's what I'm expecting to receive every month. I was planning on getting a part-time job to supplement that. You can't expect to live off that little money, said Mrs. Suzumiya before turning to her husband. Can't you reconsider? Mr. Suzumiya now had his hand folded together in front of him. He was still staring me down, though. Where are you getting this money every month? Damn, he got me. I know what he's going to say next. As soon as I tell him my parents are sending me the money, he'll ask why I don't just live with them. I could see in him a man with street smarts. Someone who has been in a lot of situations where one would have to rely on instincts and quick reasoning skills to survive. If this was a game of chess, I would be in check right now, with my next move almost certainly leading me into a checkmate. Since I really didn't want to play this game, much less win, I decided to play into his hands. My parents. Why can't you live with them? Before I could answer, Haruhi interrupted me. He can't because of certain extenuating circumstances. What are you doing? Don't tell me you're going to lie about my situation. Please don't do that. I can only foresee bad things happening because of it. Such as? Well, his father recently lost his job, and they couldn't afford to live at their place anymore, so they had to move in with a relative. But there was no room for Yawn, so he had to stay behind. They can't afford to stay in a place of their own, but they can afford to send 40,000 yen a month to him? Haruhi paused, realizing she was busted. See? I knew you were going to screw it up. Thanks, but no thanks for the help. It was then that I explained the actual situation to them, assuring them that my reason for staying wasn't urgent or anything. My mother just felt bad about forcing me to transfer schools when I had so many friends. Nothing all too special. Mrs. Suzumiya appeared touched by my situation. What a wonderful thing for your mother to do. She turns to her husband once again and pleaded with him. Haruhi, you can't be so mean. It's so unlikely that he'll find a place that affordable. I'm sure we can have him help around the house, please. Haruhi was beginning to rub his temples, a clear sign that he was buckling under the pressure. Wait, no, I don't want to stay here. Please don't change your mind. Come on, Dad, we can just charge him rent. We could use the extra money. Our finances are none of your business, said Haruhi as he buried his face in his hands. After about half a minute, he looked up. You can stay here for a month, that's it. In that time, you need to find your own place. You'll be expected to pay some rent and help around the house in that time. And so help me. He then stood up, his finger pointing directly at me. If you do anything that I don't like in the slightest, you'll be out the door so fast you won't have time to flinch before your face eats asphalt. Got it? After I nervously nodded, both Haruhi and her mother exclaimed in joy. Mrs. Suzumiya got up from her seat and finally properly introduced herself. I'm Naru Suzumiya. Welcome to our home. I hope we all get along well. She then leaned in close to me and whispered into my ear. I'm sorry my husband was so mean. He doesn't usually take kindly to strangers. He'll warm up to you in time. After that, I felt a powerful tug on my collar as I was soon dragged out of the kitchen and then up the stairs in the living room. It didn't take long before I realized it was Haruhi. Who else would it be? She dragged me to what appeared to be a bedroom. It was painted green and lacked anything other than a bed, dresser, and nightstand. Obviously, this was the guest room. You're staying here. No kidding. I could have figured that one out on my own. Don't give me that attitude. You should be grateful that I went through all the trouble to do this. If there is anyone I should be grateful to, it's your parents. More specifically, your mother. She's the real reason I have a place to stay, even if it's only for a month. She's so sweet, nice, and thoughtful. I can't even begin to imagine how she could be your mother. Haruhi crossed her arms and narrowed her eyes at me. Don't think that it'll be fun and games now that you're here. I'll be sure to keep your lazy butt busy while you're here. No excuse. Those are direct orders from your leader. Yeah, I get it. Are you done? I'd like to try to get settled in my new surroundings. She turned around and began to walk out. Just before she did, though, she added one more thing. By the way, you are absolutely, positively, 100% not allowed in my room without permission. And you are not to touch anything when you are in there. That's pretty much standard common courtesy, not that you'd know anything about that. When she finally left, I closed the door behind her and lied down on what was, for the time being, my bed. I stared up at the ceiling, feeling a bit uneased by the situation. I really didn't want to live here, but I guess I can't turn down a roof over my head. At least it's only for a month. I'm not sure I could take more than that living with Haruhi. The one thing I was both surprised and grateful for was the fact that Haruhi's parents seemed so normal. Her father's a bit rough, but not a weirdo, and her mother? She was a breath of fresh air. She could be my Asahina when I'm not in the club room. I could almost fantasize the both of them. Wait, I should stop. She is married after all and a bit old for me. I'm not really a MILF person, to be honest. Anyway, I couldn't fathom how someone like Haruhi could come from either of them. Was she adopted? No, I could see the resemblance she had to both her parents. It doesn't matter anyway. I don't think I could stand living with that many weirdos. If only I knew then what I know now, I would have been much more worried. Chapter 5. They say that the average person will sleep between 7 to 9 hours a day if they had no alarm clock. It is during this time period that our body becomes busy restoring any damage it has suffered previously and restoring your nervous system's supply of much-needed neurotransmitters. Adequate sleep also improves immune function, increases energy, and even slows aging ever so slightly. With all these benefits, it's a mystery as to why it is that some people insist on living their lives without a proper amount of sleep, let alone allowing others that luxury. These are the thoughts that quickly raced through my head when I became painfully aware of the sensation of something bashing my head into my pillow. And, judging from the suspected shape, size, texture, and approximate density of that thing, I soon determined that it was a foot. It wasn't long before my suspicions were found correct. Damn it, Yawn, get your ass up! Being woken up violently by my sister had pretty much been a morning ritual for me for many years, so I was kind of used to this. For some reason, I wasn't terribly surprised that Haruhi would happily continue this ritual in my sister's stead. Some things never change. Come on, you've been sleeping since you got here. 15 hours. You should be ashamed of yourself. Wow, had I really been asleep that long? Then why do I still feel sleepy? Haruhi moved her foot down to the small of my back and bashed it hard, which hurt pretty damn good, I must say. Ow! Alright, I'm up! About time. I swear it's like you go into a coma whenever you fall asleep. I reluctantly sat up and yawned loudly, following that up with a large stretch. I looked up at Haruhi, who was still wearing her yellow pajamas. I can't help that I'm a heavy sleeper. Well, hurry up and get dressed so we can eat before we have to leave. She turned to walk out, but stopped at the door. By the way, did you finish your homework? Homework? Crap, I forgot all about it. What with all that happened all weekend? Of course you didn't. You're as useless as always. You can copy my homework while you're eating. You don't have to do that. I'm sure I can talk to our teacher into giving me an extension, considering what had happened. Just get it done now and get it over with. Besides, I know you won't be able to do it on your own anyway, considering the fact that you didn't even try to pay attention in class all last week. Well, she's right about that. I hate it when she's right. Hurry up! With that, she stormed out of my room and slammed the door. Luckily, Haruhi had the presence of mind yesterday to make sure that I'd remembered my school clothes when I came here. After about 5 minutes, I was dressed and ready to go. I walked downstairs to find that Haruhi had already beaten me to the kitchen. God, you're slow. No wonder you're always late for brigade meetings. Whatever. Haruhi handed me her homework and sent me to get to work copying it, while she prepared breakfast. She grabbed some instant food from a cupboard and quickly heated it up before serving it. If you weren't so slow, we could have had a real breakfast. Don't blame me if it tastes like crap. Hey, it's instant. As long as it doesn't kill me, I could care less. It was then that Haruhi's mother, Naru, walked into the kitchen, still in her pink-colored pajamas, while rubbing the sleep from her eyes. Good morning. Did you get enough sleep? You must have been real tired to sleep as long as you did. I smiled politely before greeting her. Good morning, Naru. I appreciate your concern. I'm quite fine, thank you. Well, that's wonderful, she said with that warm, innocent smile. Her radiant energy soothed my soul. Perhaps living here won't be so bad after all. In the corner of my eye, I could see Haruhi raising an eyebrow at me. She's probably thinking it's weird to see me so damn polite and formal. Hey, I can be those things if I want to. It was then that Haruhi walked into the kitchen as well, holding today's newspaper. He narrowed his eyes upon seeing me, and then he gave a cocky smile. Good morning, Haruhi. Good morning, Yawn. Good morning, I said, bowing to him while still in my seat. Wait a minute, did he just call me Yawn? Damn it, I told you my real name. He then walked up to where I was sitting and eyed the homework I was doing. Doing your homework at the last minute? Oh great, I'm sure this is making me look good. Now I look like a huge procrastinator. Well, I technically am, but I didn't want him to know that. Luckily, Haruhi was quick to answer her father for me. He wasn't able to finish it because of all the stuff that happened to him over the weekend, so I'm helping him. He then clearly sees I was just copying her homework. I can see that. He then begins to walk to his seat. Keep up the good work, Yawn. Well, that statement wasn't sarcastic. And I love the fact that he's using my stupid nickname to mock me. He hates me. He really hates me. Oh, that reminds me, said Naru as she grabbed a piece of paper and began to write something down. I need you two to stop at the store to grab some things on this list. She then handed Haruhi the list, along with some money. Okay, said Haruhi, as she finished her breakfast at record pace as usual. The morning was so damn normal. I still can't comprehend how those two could raise such a strange daughter. After I finished breakfast and copying homework, Haruhi and I left for school. If there was anything to be thankful for, it was the fact that Haruhi lived considerably closer to the school than I used to, and that the hill wasn't nearly as steep from the direction she went to school. That'll be nice for a change. After over a year of climbing that hill from the steep end, going Haruhi's path would feel like a breeze. Still, I'm getting the feeling that I'm probably not going to be there for much longer, considering the fact that Haruhi's dad seems to dislike me so much. Apparently my thoughts were fairly transparent, because Haruhi made a comment about it soon afterwards. Don't worry about my dad. He's a jerk to everyone except his family and students. Students? What, is he a teacher? Oh, I didn't tell you? My father earns a living teaching women's self-defense courses. Teaching women's self-defense. Wait, that means he could probably seriously kick my ass if he wanted to, right? That's just great. Haruhi continued to explain that her father went into business teaching the courses right around the time that Japanese women began to leave the household and enter the business world, which made the timing perfect. He's done well enough that he only has to work a few hours a day during the weekdays to meet the family's financial needs. Although competition with others has reduced the influx of new students by a bit, making it a little harder for them to make ends meet. Haruhi rarely ever said anything about her life at home, so this all came as a bit of a surprise. But since I'm living with them now, I figured that maybe she felt it was okay for me to know what was going on. It wasn't much longer after she began explaining things about her dad that I noticed a familiar face come into view. To be honest, I wasn't terribly thrilled to meet him like this.
Oh, hey Yawn, why are you still here?
It was Kunikida. Although between him and Taniguchi, he was definitely the less annoying one. I still didn't want to see him during this time. This was mostly because...
And why are you walking to school with Suzumiya?
Of that.
Yawn's staying at my place for now.
Thanks, Haruhi. Announce it to the world while you're at it. To be honest, I had hoped that no one would find out that I was living with you, although it's nothing new to have rumors spread about the both of us. It's still annoying as hell.
Oh, calm down. It's not like it's a big deal. Who cares what people think?
Obviously not you. You've made that abundantly clear to me ever since you made your infamous introduction speech at the beginning of our freshman year.
So you're not moving up north? Why not?
I decided that since the cat was out of the bag now, I might as well explain. I told him that living at Haruhi's house was a 1-month deal until I found my own place.
Wow, that's cool. I sure wish I could live on my own.
So do I. I'm certain that living with Haruhi will get to me eventually. The three of us continued to walk to school, making the usual small talk until we got there. The rest of the first half of class was nothing too unusual, and it flew by fairly quickly. Haruhi left the classroom like she always did, leaving me with Taniguchi and Kunikida to eat lunch. Oh crap. I just realized that I didn't have a lunch to eat. Haruhi always ate in the school's cafeteria, so she never brings one, and I forgot about it in my rush out to the door. Don't worry, Yawn, said Taniguchi. I'd be happy to share my lunch with you. Since when have you ever been so generous? But only under one condition. Of course. You have to give that gift I gave you at the party back, since you're not leaving after all. Oh yeah, that thing. I was ordered by Haruhi to give all the gifts back anyway. To be honest, I really didn't want to look at it. So what happened anyway? Why are you still here?
Yawn's living with Haruhi now.
Thanks, Kunikida. I totally wanted Taniguchi to know that. Now everyone will know. Taniguchi gave a mischievous smile upon hearing this. So, Yawn decided to skip the dating stage and went straight to living with her? Smart move. Dating is expensive and overrated. We're not dating. I'm just using her guest room until I can find a place of my own. And her parents are okay with that? As long as I'm out of there within a month. I wonder what her parents are like. They must be a bunch of freaks too. They're surprisingly normal. Kunikida then spoke up.
Really? I've heard some weird things from people in my neighborhood about them, especially her mother.
Wait, what did you hear? And how? Wait, that's right. Kunikida lives fairly close by to where Haruhi lives, right? That explains why we ran into him this morning. Never mind that. What are you saying about Haruhi's mom? Are you saying she's really a freak too? Please tell me you're lying. I don't want the image of her sweet, innocent smile to be a lie.
I don't remember exactly, but I heard she did some weird stuff around the neighborhood, like performing strange rituals in front of everyone's house. She said she was hoping a ghost or a spirit was hiding in someone's house and wanted to have a normal conversation with one, I think.
Sounds like Yawn has been around weirdos for so long that he's forgotten what normal people are like. Laughed Taniguchi. That's not it, damn it. She wasn't like that at all when I met her. There must be a mistake. Maybe they confused her with Haruhi. That must be it. The rest of lunch went by with nothing terribly noteworthy other than Taniguchi continuously teasing me about living with Haruhi. Damn, he's annoying. When classes were over for the day, Haruhi and I made our way to the clubroom. After greeting everyone and receiving my daily dose of Asahina's tea, I sat down and played a round of checkers with Koizumi. Haruhi immediately went to the computer and began to surf the web. From what I could tell from the corner of my eye, she appeared to be watching more videos online. She seemed to be watching something of particular interest. After a minute, a grin could be seen on her face as she continued to watch. Eventually, she jumped up in excitement.
I think I might have found a real psychic.
Oh, really? I said. What makes you so sure? She clicked on something and stared at the screen intently while holding onto her chin in a position that made it look like she was in deep thought.
I can't be sure, but this video I'm watching has this guy manipulating a compass with what he claims is the power of his own mind.
That's quite interesting, said Koizumi. Shall we take a look? Everyone, myself included, gathered around Haruhi as she replayed the video. We watched as the man she was talking about encouraged his audience to hold hands and focus their latent psychic powers to move the compass. While they held hands and chanted, the guy held his hand over the compass. Like magic, the compass began to move around randomly. To be honest, I wasn't terribly impressed by it. I'm not convinced. Looks like a trick to me.
Maybe, said Haruhi, who appeared deep in thought. But I can't for the life of me figure out how he did it. If it's not psychic power, then what could it be?
After we finished watching the video, everyone went back to their seats and continued doing what they were doing before. It wasn't until 10 minutes later that we heard a growl of anger from Haruhi.
Damn you, James Randi! I should have known you would ruin it for me.
Oh, him again? Are you telling me you still have a grudge against him? What did he do now? Haruhi leaned back in her seat in exasperation.
That psychic was a fraud after all.
Oh, really? How'd he do it? Haruhi goes on to explain that James Randi released a response video to the one we just saw, showing how the trick was done. Apparently, the psychic slipped a small magnet into his thumb while he distracted the audience by telling them to hold hands. If you didn't watch him carefully, it was easy to miss. When he put his hand over the compass, the magnet was what made the compass move about. In the end, James once again did what he does best. He revealed a fraud. I bet Nagato saw it from the start. However, Haruhi was less than appreciative of his work.
Damn it, I've had it. That's the last straw.
Haruhi then stands on her chair while placing her hands on her hips.
The JREF have struck a massive blow against the SOS Brigade while we were caught unprepared. We cannot let such an attack go unanswered.
How was revealing a hoax a blow to the SOS Brigade? Are you really that upset over the fact that the man in the video wasn't a psychic? And what exactly are you cooking up in that twisted brain of yours right now? Please tell me you're not serious.
I will be spending the next few weeks making a plan for a massive counterattack against the JREF. I told you that we are at war. We can't let ourselves be beaten. We will charge at the enemy and take them down with maximum brutality. We will take no prisoners. We will leave no survivors. Any objections?
Yeah, I got one.
Then it's settled. We attack on my command.
And of course, you refuse to listen to me. What a surprise. I just hope she forgets about this declaration and moves on to something else to distract her. I could only foresee bad things happening from this. The brigade meeting ended shortly after Haruhi's declaration. So, Haruhi and I began to walk towards the bus station, where we were going to take a bus to the market to grab the things on the list Haruhi was given. When we arrived at the market, Haruhi pulled out the list and began to read it off. The list contained the typical items such as rice, soy sauce, eggs, and fish. But as we continued shopping, I noticed some of the items that were on the list were somewhat unusual. We bought fruit not commonly found in Japan, like plantains, pomegranates, and rhubarb. I think rhubarb is a vegetable technically, but whatever. We bought several types of beans and several different vegetables that were fairly rare and expensive in Japan. Eventually, I had to speak up to Haruhi about the food. Why are we buying all this different stuff? Haruhi then explained a little family tradition started by her mother. My mother thought it was boring to eat Japanese food every night, so she decided that every night would have a food served from a different part of the world. Monday was Japanese, Tuesday was American, Wednesday was Hispanic, Thursday is Italian, Friday is African, Saturday is European, and Sunday was Middle Eastern. I see, I said, finding this behavior remarkably similar to when I first met Haruhi. Back then, she would come to school with a different hairstyle every day, increasing the tie-off points every day until it reset to 0 on Monday. The ribbons she used in her hair were also color-coded based on the day. I couldn't help but wonder if Haruhi was influenced by her mother. Oh no. When we were finally finished with shopping, I was forced to carry everything myself all the way back to Haruhi's house, which sucked terribly since it was about 25 kilograms worth of food. This was made worse due to Haruhi's constant berating. Hurry up, damn it! I want to get home. You're way too slow. We'd be moving faster if you'd help me with these groceries. No excuses! This continued pretty much all the way until we finally made it back. My hands were throbbing from the plastic handles digging into my skin. After we entered the front door, I was greeted by Haruhi himself. He had his arms crossed and had a stern look on his face. Haruhi told me yesterday while you were in Dreamland that you still had some stuff that you needed to grab at your old place. Is that true? Yeah, I said apprehensively. Let's go. We'll take the car and pick them up. And like that, I was riding towards my old house with Haruhi's father. I had to admit that I was feeling very uncomfortable. I had thought about making small talk with him while we were on our way there, but I couldn't find the right questions to ask him. The look on his face spoke to me, saying, "You better be grateful that I'm doing this." So as a result, we said nothing the entire way there, except for my occasional directions. When we got there, I was in charge of loading all my stuff into the trunk on my own, while Haruhi yelled at me to hurry up. Where have I heard that line before? It took me about half an hour to get everything I had crammed into the car, including my bike, which had to be tied to the roof. When that was finally over with, we were on our way, saying goodbye to my place for the last time. I took a deep breath and closed my eyes, exhausted from both moving my stuff into the car and carrying the groceries earlier. I stayed this way for about 5 minutes, figuring that soon enough, we'd be back at the Suzumiya residence, and I could relax in my room. Unfortunately, when I opened my eyes, I began to notice that we weren't taking the route that we were supposed to take to get back. I began to become very nervous when I realized this. Where are we going? The fear began to ramp up dramatically when I saw a smile creep up onto his face. Don't worry, I figured we could stop somewhere to get some exercise before we go home. Exercise? After what I just did? Are you crazy? And what do you mean by exercise? Where are we going? To be honest, this was probably the most scared I've been since I got stabbed by Ryoko Asakura, when I attempted to undo the changes Nagato did to the world. It wasn't long before we arrived at a local dojo. Dojo? Just what is he planning for me? It was at this point that I decided to back out. Look, Suzumiya. No offense, but I'm not really feeling all that well." Before I could say anything else, the door on my side opened up, and I was grabbed by the collar and dragged out of the car with what amounted to an impossible level of force. I tried to resist, but it was to no avail. Haruhi's father was insanely strong, and I could do little other than let him take me wherever he wanted to take me. We eventually came into the changing room before he let go of me. It was then that I saw that he was carrying a gym bag. After he opened it up, I saw that he had 2 separate karate gis. "I'm sure that this one should fit you okay," said Uruki as he held up one in front of me. He then had a mischievous grin on his face. A face that I know I've seen before. "Okay, time for you to get undressed." It was then that Uruki attacked me and began to forcefully remove my school clothes. I tried in vain to resist, but it was like wrestling an ogre. Before I knew it, I was stripped of both my clothes and my dignity and forced to wear the uniform. I felt so violated. I now know how Asahina feels. Minutes later, we were both standing in the middle of the dojo in our uniforms. Uruki stood before me with his arms crossed and his eyes narrowed in my direction. "As I said before, we came here for a little exercise, but more importantly, we're here to test you." "Test me? For what? To see how much crap I can take before I have a nervous breakdown?" "Relax. I just want to see the extent of your fighting capabilities." "Fighting capabilities? I doubt I'd perform any better than the average person. I'm definitely not at your level if that's what you wanted to know. I want you to throw a punch at me." I paused momentarily to process his request. "Huh? Look, I'm sure you're pretty pissed that I stripped you and dressed you without permission, right?" "To say the least, yes." "Then use that anger and let me have it. Hit me as hard as you can." "What is he, nuts?" "Okay, maybe he is. I'm really starting to believe that he's Haruhi's dad. There's no doubt about it." "Okay, I get a free shot on him, right? Let's do this." I reluctantly charge at him and swing at him with all my might. And that was all I could remember before I came to. I was on the floor with a severe pain in my chest. I could see Uruki standing above me, looking unimpressed. "I can't believe you fell for that. Were you even trying to avoid that hit?" He then held out his hand for me to grab. "We'll try that again." "Yeah, sure we will. I love getting pounded into bits." I got up on my own power, refusing his hand. Fool me twice, shame on me. When I got up, he was once again standing with his arms crossed. "Go ahead. Try again." "No." "Try again, or I'm kicking you out of my house." "Are you serious? We both know what's going to happen. This is ridiculous." "I know what you're trying to do. You're using me as a punching bag to let out your frustrations while also satisfying your alpha male ego." "Did you say something?" asked Uruki in a tone that said, "Choose your next words carefully." After telling him no, I swallowed hard as I got ready to strike. This time, I was extra apprehensive, trying extra hard to find some kind of opening. I figured I'd try to throw him off by unleashing a kick. I was on the floor again. My right cheek hurt really badly. Might have something to do with the fact that I landed directly on it when Uruki defended against my kick by grabbing my leg and performing some kind of flip that caused me to become airborne for at least a second. I slowly started to get up, but couldn't when a weight from Uruki's foot came onto my back. He then grabbed onto my arm. "Next, I'll demonstrate some submission holds." Before I could object, I felt an incredibly painful force applied onto my arm in a direction it was never meant to go. Oh my god, it hurt so bad. I remember screaming loudly in pain before he finally released me.
I crawled away desperately up to the door. I tried to open it, but it was locked. I turned around to see Haruhi holding a set of keys. "Looking for these? You can't have them until we finish our lesson, or until you can grab them from me." "This is a nightmare! He's going to kill me! Let me out of here now!" Next, I'll demonstrate to you the wonderful world of pressure points. About an hour later, we were on our way home. My body was in all kinds of pain as I leaned my head against the window of the car. When I turned my head towards the driver's side, I could see that Haruhi was quite pleased with himself. To tell you the truth, I put you through that because I wasn't sure if I could trust you around my daughter. But after going through that, I'm fully confident that if you ever tried anything to her, she would kick your ass. And here I thought I might make it to the end of the day with at least a shred of self-esteem. Thanks for taking care of that for me. I spent a great deal of time teaching her martial arts and putting her through physical training when she was in junior high. She did a lot of acting out during that time, so I thought that if I gave her something to do to use up her energy, that it might help correct her behavior. I was amazed with her talent, but she just didn't want to utilize it. To make matters worse, she still acted out despite my efforts. He gave a deep sigh while rubbing the bridge of his nose. I'm just glad that she's gotten a lot better when she got into high school. Interesting to hear about how Haruhi's parents reacted to her behavior when she just got into junior high. I guess this also explains why Haruhi is in such great physical shape. A short while later, we finally arrived at the house. Unsympathetic to my pain, Haruhi made me unload my belongings into the house on my own, being sure to yell at me for being slow. While I was doing this, I couldn't help but notice that there were pieces of paper stuck to the walls all over the house. I knew those weren't there when I left this place over an hour ago. They had statements like "welcome" and "come here" on them. It was unbelievably bizarre. On my third trip, I noticed that it was Haruhi's mother who was putting up the weird pieces of paper on the walls. After placing the third box into my room, I approached her to ask what she was doing. "Oh, I'm just trying out a little experiment." "Experiment?" "Uh-huh. I got this idea earlier this morning. I thought to myself that paper wards were used to keep spirits away all the time back in the day. I had this thought that perhaps I could make wards that drew spirits to us rather than away from us." "Why would you want to do that?" "Oh, I'm just hoping that these will make our home haunted." "Wait, you want your house to become haunted?" "That's right! I hope we get a poltergeist. I think it would be fun to have to dodge objects being thrown at us." Fun. No, ghosts are not fun. Ghosts are freaky. Ghosts are scary. Ghosts are unnatural. But most of all, ghosts are not fun. Obviously ignoring my objections, Naru began to bounce up and down excitedly. "I sure hope this works. It can get so boring in here. I've always wanted to meet a ghost." It was at this point that I decided it was best to make my exit. Well, I guess it's time for me to get back to work. I walked away as soon as possible to grab the next box. During all this, both Haruhi and Haruhi were carrying on with their own activities, completely oblivious to what Naru was doing. Is this kind of thing so common that they don't even think about it when it happens? When I had finally finished moving my stuff in, I approached Haruhi for an explanation. She was sitting in the dining room doing her homework. So what's with your mother?" Haruhi looked up at me strangely for a few seconds before figuring out what I was talking about. "Oh, my mom has always had an obsession with ghosts and demons and whatnot. It's best to just let her ideas go their course. Nothing ever actually happens when she tries these kinds of things." As much of a relief it is to hear that,
Don't you worry she might do something out of control? Haruhi smiled and waved her hand away. Nah, my mom couldn't hurt a fly. She's just bored, that's all. Before I could say any more, Haruhi pointed her pencil at my nose. By the way, when do you plan on doing your homework? I'm not letting you loaf around so you can try and copy my homework in the morning. That was your idea. Doesn't matter. You made me look bad in front of my dad this morning because of that. I won't stand for it. If anyone looked bad this morning, it was me. I told you I could have talked to my teacher and gotten an extension, but you wouldn't listen. Haruhi pulled out the chair next to her. No more excuses. Go grab your homework and get started. That's an order. After giving a deep sigh, I did as she commanded. I was already sore and exhausted after what had happened earlier today, so I knew doing my homework would be an arduous chore. Luckily, Haruhi was willing to give me some pointers here and there on some of the problems she already did. With her help, I was finished much quicker than usual, and was free to relax for the rest of the day. Soon it was dinner time, so I ended up having my first meal with Haruhi's family. It was Monday, so it was Japanese night. Thank God. I don't think I'm quite ready to try the concoctions that will be made later this week. I found that eating dinner with the Suzumiyas to be a quiet affair, as both Haruhi and Oruki were too busy shoveling food down their throats to say anything. And Naru was happily in dreamland while eating her meal. That innocent smile of hers was a source of great comfort for me yesterday. But now I was finding it strangely creepy. On the plus side, she was quite the cook, and the meal was delicious. When dinner was over, I was forced to help clean the table and wash the dishes with Haruhi. A task I loathed only because Haruhi continuously berated me on how slow I was. After that, I finally was excused to go to my room and relax for the rest of the day. I pulled out a manga book that was at the top of a box I opened, and began to read it to stem off boredom. After about 10 pages were read, I started to hear a voice from behind the wall in my room. No, wait. It must be my imagination. I went back to reading, and I heard it some more. It sounded like a girl's voice. Okay, no need to panic. I'm sure there's a perfectly good explanation for it. I'm positive that it's not ghosts or spirits. There's no way those paper wards haunted this place already. I got up from the bed and slowly walked towards the wall. As I got closer, the sound of the voice became clearer. When I put my ear to the wall, it was then that I determined the true source of the voice. I exhaled in relief when I realized it wasn't a ghost. Instead, it was Haruhi. But who the heck was she talking to? Haruhi's room was adjacent to mine, and apparently the wall that separates us wasn't very thick. I decided to knock on it to see how she'd react. I heard a light scream when I did. I couldn't help but laugh when I realized I startled her. I could then hear the door to her room open, followed by her heavy footsteps to my door. The door flew open, revealing Haruhi in a mood that was less than amused. What do you want? Who were you talking to? Haruhi's eyes widened before an obvious blush appeared on her face. Shut up, idiot! She then slammed my door and marched back to her room. It was then that I laughed my ass off. I couldn't believe I caught Haruhi talking to herself. I remembered that she told me in the past that she had that habit, but I thought it came up as an excuse for her to ask me indirectly as to why I went out with Asahina the day before. After enjoying that moment, I lied back down on the bed and continued reading. I was sure to note that the voices stopped. When I had finished reading, I dropped the book on the floor, shut off the light, and went to bed. To summarize today's events, I would say that my observations and assumptions of Haruhi's parents were grossly incorrect. They were not normal people. I've determined that Haruhi got her tomboyishness and bossiness from her father, and her weirdness from her mother. It's no wonder as to why Haruhi is the freak she is. I honestly was not sure if I would be able to make it a full month with these people. I hoped I could find a place of my own soon.